Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. My numbers are going up. It's crazy. It's going up a lot faster than I thought it was. And even my viewing hours are going up a lot faster. Almost at 1,000 viewing hours, which means I only need 3 more after that. 3,000 more, not 3 hours. So, people who rewrite history. You may have come across these people in your life where you remember something. You remember something very intensely. You know the details, and yet when you bring it up, that's the person that's like, that's not what happened. Oh man. Yeah, so my ex-wife, I don't know if she, honestly, I don't know if she had like some type of medical condition that just wasn't diagnosed. I mean, possibly like a stroke or something. When she was young, she was in a car accident where she blacked out while driving, rolled the car. The explanation was that there was a carbon monoxide leak from the exhaust that made her pass out. At least that was what I was told. And then she had something very similar happen after we had split, and she actually ended up in the place that I was working, which totally shocked me. Put you in an awkward position, right? Because you're the ex or soon to be ex. I forget when exactly this happened. And it's like, you're no longer responsible for this person, and her parents were there. But at the same time, because you were together for so long, you almost feel obligated to do something. Like, yeah, the situation between the two of you isn't all that great, but at the same time, don't want to be a dick. And at that time, she doesn't need an asshole, right? So, anyways, there were so many times, and I don't think it was necessarily rewriting history, but she would bring something up, and she would act like she had never told me this before. And then I'm like, yeah, you told me about that like a couple days ago. And she's like, no, I didn't. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna say. And then I would finish the story for her, and she's like, how did you know that? Well, for one, I already answered your question, and it's because you already told me. And two, I'm kind of surprised you don't remember that. Like, we've had a whole conversation about this. And then there were other times where, like towards the end of our marriage, where we had our 5-year anniversary. And part of the 5-year anniversary was we went on a second honeymoon down to Gatlinburg. And we come back. We basically spent that trip doing all the things we wish we would have done the first time we went down there. And then we get back. And she had like this, her personality just kind of flipped, right? And she kept saying that I was going to cheat on her and I was going to leave her. And there was like no basis for this whatsoever other than she just kept saying it. And I'm like, why do you think this is going to happen? And she's like, you're going to have the 7-year itch. And I'm like, we're coming up to our 6-year anniversary. She's like, no, it's going to be our 7-year anniversary. And I'm like, we just went on our 5-year anniversary trip. Like, we're coming up to 6 years. And she's like, no. And it didn't matter, like, how much I did the math with her. I'm like, we got married this year. We went on the trip this year, 5 years later. It's currently this year. Like, we haven't even, you're talking about a 7-year itch, and we're not even at our 6-year anniversary, and why is this coming up? But this kind of thing happened on and off, but it got like really bad towards the end. It was like you're constantly having the same conversation for the first time. And I don't know what that was all about. But then there's other members of my family. And my family, as I've learned over the years, is notorious for rewriting history. And there are so many things that I was told growing up that were just made up, completely fabricated. So I have this aunt. I only met her once, and it was when I was younger. It was at the old apartment, and what ended up happening, well, what I was told. Let's start with what I was told. What I was told is that when my family, my grandparents, my mom, me, and all my aunts moved to Texas, and I would ask about this, and my mom would say, oh, it's because your grandpa wanted to be a cowboy. Well, if you want to be a cowboy, yeah, move to Texas. Okay. And I was a kid. There was no follow-up questions with that. It's just kind of weird you'd move from Michigan to Texas for a year and then move back. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I think I was like 1 year old, and when they moved back, it was just after the tornado that ripped through Kalamazoo back in like 80, 81. And so before they moved back, my Aunt Karen, and this is where there's the story, right? My Aunt Karen lived in Florida, and I couldn't figure out, like, everyone else lived in Michigan, why does Aunt Karen live in Florida? Was it work? Did she move? Did she meet somebody? She just always loved Florida. And my mom told me the story about how in Texas she met a gang of bikers, and she ran away with them, and they rode from Texas to Florida, and then she stayed in Florida. Again, I'm a kid, and I'm like, wow, this sounds like a movie or something. So that was what I was told growing up. And then years later, like maybe 10 years later, I think, it was like the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around that time, my parents put some money together, and I can't remember if she took a train or if she flew, but they were able to bring Karen up for a few days from Florida. And so she's staying with my parents at our apartment, sleeping on the couch. And there was one night where my grandparents came over, and I was all excited. I love my grandparents, and I thought they were going to be spending the evening with us or something. And Karen goes to the door. My grandparents stayed on the stairs, and Karen, they just kind of look at each other, and she says, "Do you have anything to say to me?" And my grandma says to her, well, you're not dead. And that was it. That was the only thing that she said. And they turned around and they went back down the stairs, because we're on a second story apartment, and they left. And as a kid, I didn't know like what any of that shit was about. Like what the fuck was that about? And Karen was all upset. And you know, it was, she basically just wanted to go back home, which was definitely no longer Michigan. Like she had made her own home in Florida. And then there's some other stuff that happened on that trip, but I might save that for another video. So that was the only time I'd ever met this aunt. And she died like a year or two ago, I think. It might have been longer than that. I want to say it was after 2020. But yeah, so she passed away. And the other weird thing was she also ended up having a stroke right after she gave birth to her daughter, my cousin that I've never met. And like nobody from the family went down there to like help her. Like there was her husband, and it was just her and her husband. And like there wasn't even the consideration of like helping at all. Like nobody sent money, nobody as far as I know, nobody sent flowers or a card or anything. But when she died, everybody acted like they loved her so much. And it's like, oh, when they're dead, you try to set things right. Okay, I get it now. Fucking people. So yeah, that's not the first time that people had tried to rewrite history. And the whole biker thing was bullshit. Turns out my grandparents abandoned her in Texas. I don't know if it was they couldn't afford the number of kids that they had. I have no idea. They tried to get one of my aunts to join the Air Force, and she was like, what? They're really trying to talk her into that. So I don't know. And you can't ask these people anything. They just... the phrase that they all love to use is, let the past be the past. And it's like, well, for what I'm learning about the past is there's some shady shit going on, and you wonder why people don't trust you. So, another thing, I've got one more. When I was in 3rd grade, that was when my mom sat me down at the kitchen table and told me that my stepdad wasn't my real dad. Like, I'd always known this guy to be my dad, right? And all of a sudden, I'm told this story about how she got pregnant in high school, and she showed me a picture in the yearbook of who my dad was. This guy that I'd never met. It turns out I actually did at one point, but was never told that was him. And she went on to tell me the story about how, and I know now it was to really like discourage me from ever wanting to track him down, that he had gotten like 5 other girls pregnant his senior year, and that was like, she thought that once she was pregnant, that he would do the right thing and they would get married and there'd be a family, and that didn't happen. Like, he's not, I met him a couple years ago, and he's not the kind of guy that, he's not a huggy, feely, family man type of dude, like type of guy. He's he was MGTOW before there was MGTOW. He had at one point gotten married to another woman, and they had my half-sister, who I've never met. And then at some point, he learned that she was having an affair at work, and she was pregnant with these twin boys, and he knew that the twin boys weren't from him. So then he made some stupid comments about how does he know that his daughter is his. And once that marriage fell apart, he basically just like isolated himself in this house that he stays at. That's a story that he told me. Again, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of truth in there, and I'm sure that somebody else would say that there's other things that happened or whatever. But yeah, that story where my mom was like, well, he got all these other girls pregnant. That kind of fucked me up, especially during high school. Like, you're supposed to start dating, and I'm looking at all these girls, and I'm like, oh, she's cute. Oh, wow, she's gorgeous. And then the second thought was, is this my half-sister? Because I don't know who these people are that apparently exist. And when I met my biological dad, I told him that, and he just started laughing, and he was like, no, like, he's like, there's you, and then there's your half-sister. And that was all bullshit. And then when I asked my mom about it, she said, well, that's what the caseworker told me, and that was why I wasn't going to get any child support out of him. Well, I know that was all bullshit too, because he was paying child support, and then he stopped paying child support or couldn't afford to pay child support. I don't know what the hell the scoop was, because nobody's willing to tell me a damn thing. But I do know that there was child support involved, because that was something that was happening when my mom married my stepdad, and he was to adopt me, and then she didn't have to worry about trying to get child support off of him anymore. Rewritten history. That's all people seem to know how to do. Like, you just can't get the honesty out of anybody anymore on anything. And I remember there was something I asked my grandparents about when, after I had gotten married and me and my first wife went to go visit them at their apartment. And I asked them about this thing that happened years ago. And the only comment I received was, there's just some things you need to leave in the past. And I was like, why the fuck is... Usually, if somebody's not willing to talk about something fucked up happened. Huge red flag. And then they'll talk about, like, respect your elders and blah, 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 and it's none of your damn business and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wait, so this thing happened to a family member and we're just not supposed to talk about it. That's healthy. That gives me confidence in the people I'm supposed to trust. What the fuck happened? What if something happens to me and then people ask about it later and it's like, we don't like to talk about that. Yeah. Rewriting history, keeping secrets. And I'm sure later on, somehow, some way, things will get pieced together. But then a good chunk of the story, I mean, half the story is already gone, right? Especially with my aunt. Like, she's not around anymore, and I don't know if she ever told her daughter about, like, what happened. But it's just really weird. It's like every time I turn around, there's something I thought that I had known, and then something else comes up, or I talk to somebody else and they're like, that's not what happened. And then I get more information and I'm like, what the hell is it with people? Like, what is it you're trying to hide? Like, what shame or guilt is behind all of this crap? Are you looking at prison time? Like, like seriously. So yeah, people who rewrite history. I'm sure there's some of you out there that have experienced this. And I'd really like this channel to start being like some type of community where, look, I'm being honest with you guys, telling you these things, and I know I'm not the only person out there that goes through this crap or has experienced this stuff. Like some of the things that you guys said about your parents after some of the things that I talked about. Like, that was actually quite amazing, because for the longest time I was like, I've got to be the only person like in this country, on this planet, that has this fucked up shit happening in their life. These things that we're supposed to just forget and move on from. But no, one of you out there is probably currently going through something very similar to what I'm going through now. With very similar people, and I don't get it. I don't understand how these people operate. Like, what is their thinking? Like, how do you treat family like that? What are you expecting out of people? One of my best gifts and one of my worst advantages I have in life is the fact that I can remember quite a bit. I have a very, very good memory when it comes to things. And when somebody tries telling me that's not what happened, I call you out on your bullshit. And I'll go into detail. And when they get angry, I know for a fact I am right on target. And I've heard so many times growing up, you're not supposed to remember that. What the hell? Are you serious? So yeah, that's about it for me today. Let me know if you've experienced anything like this. Get some conversations going in the comment section. Maybe some of you guys can help each other out if you've had something like this happen. Let me know what your thoughts in the comment section. Keep on typing.